Welcome to 5 Points Blues presentation of Back to the Basics. Everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football, but were too afraid to ask. Here are your hosts, Nikki Harrison and Kristi Scales.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Back to the Basics. Everything you wanted to know about Cowboys football, but we're too afraid to ask. I'm Nikki Harrison here with Kristi Scales. We've got a jam-packed show today. We've got the awesome DCC director, Kelli Finglass.
Hello.
And our social guru, Taylor Stern.
Nikki, you are so energetic. Not only
Aren't you?
we're standing, Kelli had the idea of standing, but you're bringing it.
Thank you. I like standing. Thank you, Kelli.
It's good for energy. It's good
Yes.
for posture.
I love it.
Good for your figure.
Well, we're excited for you guys to have you today because it's our first podcast for the month of March, which celebrates women in history. So we have two history makers here today with Taylor and Kelli. But Kelli, it was such a great week last week for you personally and for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders with the Smithsonian. For those that didn't get to see the Boots podcast last week or our 5 Points Blue podcast, tell us about the trip to Washington, D.C. and the DCC's place in the Smithsonian.
We traveled to D.C., and we have Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders uniforms, the original sketch, our Barbie and our bear, that are now all part of the Smithsonian's American Museum of National Museum of American History. The Smithsonian has 19 museums, so they're all, they're beautiful, they're amazing. Our artifacts will be with, we got to see some wonderful classic pop culture things like Miss Piggy and some props from Breaking Bad, props from Sex and the City. My personal favorite was Seinfeld's puffy shirt.
I thought you were going to say something about SNL. You're a big SNL
I am
fan.
a big SNL fan. You're right. And I think they have a Spartan outfit, but no, we didn't see any Saturday Night Live things.
Didn't see any of that, but we did get a behind-the-scenes tour, and so a lot of these things that Kelli's referencing are going to be on display in the near future with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader uniform and those artifacts. Also, the poster from 1977 is one that's there. But this was a thing where it's not like you just send it, oh, hey, dear Smithsonian, this would be really cool for your museum. Love, Kelli Finglass.
Well, it kind of started that way.
It did. No, tell us about how it started 15 years ago.
My Dear Smithsonian letter, the first letter I sent was 2002.
Yeah.
And it kind of was, hey, these are America's sweethearts. This is where they are in community service. This is where they are in pop culture. This is where we are in the history of the NFL. And, we didn't get accepted initially, but that's never stopped me. So more letters and more phone calls, and 15 years later, we're in. And, it takes time, but it also takes passion, and it's all fair now. It makes sense. Now we have 13 when you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders uniform, we have 13 seasons on CMT. The uniform has been in 2 made-for-television movies.
That's right.
The uniform is now on Barbies. The uniform is on an NFL licensed bear. And of course, the uniform now, that designed by Paula Van Wagner, talk about a lady in history. She sketched the uniform in 1972. So the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders uniform has been on NFL sidelines for 46 years.
Wow. That's awesome. That's fabulous.
And it's changed very little.
I loved when I heard that Kelli had been writing the letter since 2002, because not only do I think that's awesome that she didn't give up and kept going and knew that she wanted this to be part of their story, but I also know that Kelli probably has that letter somewhere.
Of course I do.
And I was like, I want to see that letter, because I would love to see just how much it's grown in that short span since you started writing those letters. Because Kelli let me do something about 3 or 4 years ago, DCC Defined, that was kind of unique and something we hadn't done in a while, and just to see how much even further since then. And what we did, I'll just quickly explain it, but we sat the girls down, and it was on Cameo Day. So they're in the uniforms, and they have their hair and makeup done, and they look beautiful, and they're in a green screen room. And they were being asked questions for the video board that was the basic questions of who takes the longest to get ready? What's your pregame jam? The, basic questions, if you would. So then I did not know any of them, and I sat down and said, describe the woman that you want to be. When do you feel you're most confident? What were some of the other questions?
I don't remember the questions. I do remember the results were that somehow Taylor was able to pull really heartfelt answers out of the girls that even we hadn't seen.
Yeah.
We've got all the bubblegum questions. What's your favorite color? Who's on your playlist and that kind of things? But she had the girls in tears, and it was very impactful. It was very honest. It was very genuine, and it was great. And yes, that's exactly kind of like my Smithsonian. Your defined. It was new. It was bold. It's impactful.
Yeah. And it's so important because it makes it where they're relatable.
Yes.
People see that and they're like, oh, wow, she likes what I like. She does what I do. So that
That was it, Nikki, because when I did that and I knew we had cameos, I seriously went to my sister, who's not even in sports. That's right. And I said, what do you want to know? And she goes, I just want to know them.
Yeah.
She's like, I could never be that. My body will never look like that. I will never feel that, sense of coming out of a tunnel on a football field, national football field. And so we just asked them questions, and girls were crying about their moms, the passing of their dads, feeling most confident just in their sweats. And to me, that's relatable to your daughter.
Absolutely.
To your daughter, to see these stories that these women are so strong and amazing and historical, but also just like you and I.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about having someone like Taylor in social media, because not only do we have a girl, we have that perspective, a female's perspective of it, but social media allows us to do so many more things than, to get the message out about the cheerleaders. And that's something that I've been a judge for either 17 or 18 years coming up, which I started when I was in kindergarten as a judge.
Can I be your co-judge?
But youth vote.
Yeah, the youth vote. But there's so much to these young women. We had 2 biomedical engineers on the squad at the same time.
Yeah.
And people think that they're all, right out of high school or college. They don't realize what are some of the numbers that you were giving at the Smithsonian last week, Kelly, that we had 26 different universities?
34 universities and colleges represented, 19 states across the U.S. and Japan and Australia. So yeah, it's not just what it used to be, which was, in fact, our first TV show ever was called The 36 Most Beautiful Women in Texas, and it's not that anymore.
Yeah, and even with the judging, certainly the beauty and appearance and the dance are a huge part of the scoring. But can you tell us about the panel interviews and some of the things that are off the dance floor and away from the makeup mirror and doing your hair that are so important in the process?
The panel interview portion of our audition is really one of my favorites, and certainly Kristi's, because she likes to see who's got the smarts. But they're really designed to see who's engaging, who's approachable, who can do radio or podcast, and more importantly, interact with fans. And so we ask them questions, of course, about the Dallas Cowboys history. We ask questions about the NFL. We want them to know about their world, our industry, our community. And it gets quite revealing. And at the end of the day, I've always said some girls talk their ways onto the squad, and some people talk their way off the squad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I don't know if, Kelly, you saw last week, but we did the character playbook with Janelle and Tasha.
Yes.
And I don't know them. I know Janelle more, but I didn't know Tasha. She wasn't part of DCC Defined, and she's actually a mom. I'm sure anyone who's watched the show has seen that. But, kind of we were just talking to these students across, I think, Arlington ISD or
I think so.
It was Arlington, Frisco, and Dallas.
Yeah, right. And it was really special to hear their answers. And I made Janelle tell the story, but her grandmother was actually a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
And when I was asking her those questions about describe the woman you want to be, that was who she said.
Wow.
And they're so multidimensional, and I could go on about all of that, but I thought the Smithsonian, just such a cool thing. The thing I remember is always the Dorothy red slippers.
And they're there is same museum. There's the second floor, and we're going to be on the third floor. The third floor is
cool.
Pop culture, sports, and entertainment.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, we did see on this behind the scenes tour with the curator, that's his section is the sports and pop culture. He opened a drawer, and it was right below Jerry Seinfeld's puffy shirt and Leonard Nimoy Spock ears. But it was the full outfit from Ray Bolger for the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, it was very, very cool.
I think that was my biggest wow moment. I mean, almost tearfully. It was magical. It was absolutely magical, and it reinforces how much entertainment, sport, and pop culture affect our lives.
That's right.
Yeah, but even more than that, and that's why one of the reasons I wanted to have you on today, Kelli, is with the Women in History Month, the role that the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders had in the 1960s. This is before the current incarnation, or since 1972, what we know of as the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. But when it was the high school boys and girls, the co-ed squad, something very special happened in the mid-1960s that changed things racially in our community. So can you relate that story for us?
Sure. So our first cheerleaders were 1961. The Cowboys got the franchise in 60, and then the first cheerleaders were in 1961. I have pictures. I don't know if and they were high school all-stars. They were selected from area schools all around Dallas. But it's quite obvious for the first few years, the first group was just women. Then we added boys, but they're all Caucasian. And
peppy looking.
Yeah, hold it up so we can see it there, Taylor, because William will be able to switch it here.
We can tweet it out.
so Dee Brock, who was the director, because they were cheering at the Cotton Bowl, and she saw, the fan base, she's like, we need to represent other communities on this squad. And so she went to the Cowboys, and she said at the time, they said you can have they were stunting cheerleaders, and you can have an African-American female if she partners with an African-American male.
Okay.
But this was in the 60s
Right,
when
right.
people were,
Not
using
even-
different water fountains and buses and all that
Right.
stuff. And it was
Right.
very progressive of her. And there's a picture of the 1971 squad where you can, we'll
We
get
got the new one.
you can see that dynamic change on our squad, and it's the thing that Dee Brock was the most proud of as director, is that she was progressive and appropriate in having.
Sure.
That's very brave, too.
Well,
And so forward-thinking in that time.
This was a time where the players
Right.
were not, the practice field was up in North Dallas, but they couldn't live in that area.
Right. Right. I remember Calvin Hill talking about
The
that.
African American players couldn't live in the parts of Dallas where the white players could, near practice fields and things like that. So our area was still very segregated at the time, and yet the cheerleaders have an integrated squad and with a group of high schoolers. It's really an amazing story.
If Des Bryant could not eat in our training table. That is what was happening to Don Perkins. He was not allowed to eat in the cafeteria table. If you were, they didn't let roommates, one be black, one be white. It had to be, certain thing. And they started integrating. And Tom Landry was like, no, we're going to be a true reflection of our society.
Yeah.
Really cool. The deep blue that we did on Black and Blue. Really
So
neat.
good.
Yeah.
So good. Well, speaking of Women's History Month, Kristi, you covered the Cowboys for just over 27 years.
This will be my 28th year coming up.
28th year.
So, Kristi, you started covering in
91 was my first season with Cowboys Radio. My first season on the sideline was 99, so it's my 20th year on the sideline
Oh,
coming
my
up.
goodness. I like the two of you to speak about what it was like when you first came into the league. It was a lot different. There weren't a whole lot of us.
Kelly was a
started in
cheerleader.
I was a
know.
cheerleader in the 80s, but my first year as director was 91, so I didn't realize we were kind
That's
of
right.
rookies together,
That's
so
right.
to speak.
That's right. So what's changed? Let me ask you this way: from the time that you were on the squad and now, 28 seasons coming up as the director, has the perception of the cheerleaders changed?
I think with our television show on CMT and things like we talked about, social media is defined. I think people now realize how hard it is to make this team. I think we hope that they realize that they're all educated and that they are have extremely impressive careers. And back probably in the 70s and 80s, when pretty much all you had to represent the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders was one poster or one team photo. It was just a picture. You knew nothing about the ladies in the picture.
Where they were even from.
And now modern day is, you know a lot about everybody now, maybe sometimes too much, by their Instagrams and their Twitter accounts. But the television show for sure has highlighted how these ladies come now literally from all over the world. And you mentioned Janelle. Janelle has been a brilliant cheerleader.
She's awesome. She was on with us last week.
She's a beautiful spokesperson, and she's a great ambassador, and she's exceptionally good with children. So, I mean, I couldn't be prouder of not the woman she's become because she came this way, but just her journey. I mean, traveling all the thousands of miles, the money to get here, the legal and the work to make her visa appropriate, all of that, besides our training camp dancing and the pressures of that.
Yeah, and then Yuko from Japan, same thing with the visas, and there's so much more that goes into it, behind the scenes things that we don't even think about.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know you guys have seen the history and the growth of it, but me coming from New Mexico where we don't have any pro teams or anything to really follow, and knowing about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, mainly from the television show, I'll admit that, it was that acknowledgement of these are the best.
Right.
This is top tier.
For sure.
And I remember there would be girls in high school that once you started cheering, just in your high school cheer, it was like, well, the goal is to be a DCC. I mean, that's just the goal here. And that was seriously.
Absolutely.
I remember, these girls, because a lot of them are Cowboys fans or their dads are football fans. It's like, well, yeah, my daughter's going to be a DCC.
Well, yeah, there are several some of them just finished their rookie seasons, but they come from NFL squads from all over. We had 2 girls from the Jets.
2 from the Jets.
They call their cheerleading squad the Flight Crew. And before the 2 current girls,
Holly,
Jasmine and Danielle, of course, came as a pair together. That was probably about 8 seasons ago from New York. And we've from the Tampa Bay Bucks and NBA teams, the Bucks
Dolphins
and the Pistons, the Dolphins.
Patriots.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. Alexandra came
and
down
Kelly
from the
laughs
Patriots.
about the Instagram account, but I promise you, if you were ever a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, if you go to their Instagram page, it probably says former Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. It is a badge of honor.
Probably
As it should be.
It is a badge of honor.
I would.
Yes.
We have 673 ladies in our alumni association.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and several of them are staffers that help with the auditions every year, and so much. We should acknowledge Brooke for all that she did with putting together the submission for the Smithsonian, and it was great to have the whole staff up there last Monday. It really was a magical day up in D.C. So.
Best part about D.C. is we came home with Kristi's new nickname.
Oh, no.
If you've ever taken a field trip with Kristi Scales, she knows something about everything. It's my next goal. My next vision goal is to get Kristi on Jeopardy. But anyway, her new nickname is Kristipedia.
Kristipedia.
Thank you very much. Thank you, William, for the sound effects.
She was showing us the monuments and the museums and knew something about everything. Even Charlotte Jones Anderson was like, hey, Kristi, what about such and such? And hey, Kristi. And the whole bus ride was, hey, Kristi.
Well, Charlotte and I have a similar background in that we both worked on Capitol Hill for a short amount of time.
Okay.
Now she actually had a real job there after she had graduated from Stanford. I believe her degree is biology, but she was going to go
She's a
to
brain.
She is a brain. She's going to go to Washington D.C. and work her way up through the system. I think she was working for a senator's office.
A congressman.
Mm-hmm. And then when I was in college, I interned for a congressman, Steve Bartlett, who served 4 terms and then came back to be the mayor of Dallas. But I spent a summer up in Washington, D.C. And the great thing about the Smithsonian is it's free. So you don't have to, when you're a college kid and don't have the money to do anything, you just spend all weekend going through the museums and learning everything you can learn. And then, a few years later, you can go back with the DCC and say, hey, tell all the behind-the-scenes stories.
Yeah, Charlotte is a brain. I mean, I remember when the DCC Defined thing came out, the video, she showed it to Savannah Guthrie, and I was like, that is the coolest thing. Just to have these women that you admire and you aspire to be like, looking at things that we're doing here. And, I mean, just for an example, you're talking about how great Charlotte is. She's speaking at Stanford University today, where she went, and she's speaking on a sports panel.
Yeah, yes.
With Condoleezza Rice.
And then you know what she's doing after that? She's teaching a class. They've asked her to do a master class.
Wow.
So after
I would
her
take
panel,
that class.
Yeah,
I would take that class.
For sure. I have one more. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. But Kelly, we've referred to the CMT show several times. and there are a lot of people watching this podcast that watch that show. What kind of reaction do you get in public from people that watch that show and think that they know you and Judy from that show?
I do. It has changed my existence in malls, things like that. Usually people want to take a picture. Oh my gosh, are you that cheerleader lady? They don't always know your name. They know they recognize. Where do I know you from? Where do I know you? And a lot of times I just kind of let it.
Just let it go.
Let it go.
Duck Dynasty.
But they call me, you're that cheerleader lady. Yes, I am.
That cheerleader lady.
You need to come up with something funny to tell them, Kelly. Tell them SNL.
Well, there's been a couple of times. No, they think I'm a broadcaster or different things like that. But there's a couple times if they've caught me in a less than camera ready mode, I say, "Are you that cheerleader lady?" Yes, I am, but not today.
Do you feel like you have to go out? No, that's good.
I should. That's what I preach. Judy goes out picture perfect.
Really?
Totally picture perfect. Oh no, I walk my dog in pajamas with Ugg house shoes with a ponytail on top of my head. And,
love it.
And if I wind up at the grocery store the same way.
Follow Kelly on Twitter. She posts makeup list selfies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's
and I still don't know
afraid.
how to use those filters. I don't have time even if I wanted to.
I know. Kelly keeps it real.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd look a heck of a lot better if I had took the time to filter like you young girls do.
It's too much. It's too much.
Do you think the show is really representative of the whole process for the whole thing through training camp?
I mean, Kristi,
it gives you
part
a great
of the process. You've been with us pre-show, and it intensifies the process.
Yes.
It lengthens the process. But no, it's
because
unscripted.
let's be honest, there are a lot of reality shows where they're not even close to reality. Wow. But I think this one is.
Did you watch The Bachelor last night? Did y'all?
I did.
Hey, Chris Harrison is a huge Cowboys fan and a Lake Highlands alum like me.
Is
oh yeah, he's a Lake Highlands guy.
That's so
of course,
cool.
You bet.
Well, I bet you it's Ari, right?
Yes.
He's the most hated man in America right now.
He's got 24 hours from last night, so tonight we get to see what happens. If he gets back with Lauren or if she dumps him too. She's also a Dallas girl. I can't believe I'm talking about
a Dallas girl.
Show.
All right.
But I watch it. That's my shameless fun with my girlfriends.
That's good. That's good.
But we do have another CMT season coming up, though.
We do. We're going into season 13.
God, that's amazing. I can't believe it's already been 12 seasons.
Jeez.
That's a little scary.
No, it's true.
It's true. That's right.
Yeah, and you bring up Judy Trammell, who's been working with you since the start. I pulled a list recently of most tenured Cowboys employees, and she's number 2. She's been here that long. Yeah. Or she's in the top 5.
Yeah, she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Judy cheered from 1980 through the 83 seasons. So she actually had 4 seasons, 80, 81, 82, 83. She became the assistant choreographer in 84, which also happens to be when I started cheering as a rookie. And then she was the assistant choreographer until I was named director, and then I, in turn, partnered with Judy, and that's when she was the choreographer.
Yeah.
Kelly's in the top 15 too.
Top 15, huh?
Oh, wow. The best moment of the whole trip to the Smithsonian was during the behind-the-scenes tour. And the curator, it's this long room, and it's like straight out of the Container Store. Everything is like boxed up and neatly thing. It's very cool. But he had one thing sitting out on the counter because he knew the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders were going to be there, and he was going to be given this behind-the-scenes tour. And it was a deck of playing cards from 1981. The Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders have had different years for this, but I believe it was the first one was 1981, and you see it, and Kelly's like, "Oh, Judy, you're in that card set.
Judy, you're an archive already."
And so she beat the rest of the DCC too, because she was already part of the collection. But the funny thing was the curator is wearing gloves, and even though we're getting this tour, we're not allowed to touch anything, right?
Don't touch it.
And so he's going through the deck of cards and finds Judy. She's an ace, of course, but he finds her and holds it up. So we have a picture of Judy, standing with the curator, with a great picture, and he's holding her card. But of course, she can't touch it, even though she's the one on the photo.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, that was a highlight of the trip for sure.
It was an adorable moment.
Well, that's our time. We got to because Taylor's got to rush off. You have to promise you'll come back because this was great. We need a part 2.
Oh,
yes.
3, 4. I think Kelly keeps it real. Should
Absolutely.
Be a
Oh,
segment.
I'd love to. I love girl talk.
Kelly keeps it real.
Kelly keeps it
I like
real.
it. I like it.
She should have her own podcast, and that's the name of it, Keeping It Real.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week on Back to the Basics.
This has been a production of 5 Points Blue, DallasCowboys.com, and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!
Something up?
Yes.